Hey folks, it's Jang here from ultimaterc.com, and this is a follow-up review. I've already tested the Exceed RC Dynamite in brushed form, and you can get that at nitrorcx.com and also from a bunch of other vendors that sell it under a different name, the exact same vehicle, for about $109. Now I'm going to test it in brushless form, which you can get ready to run, all set up, for about $190. Now, since I already had the brushed version of this truck, I decided not to go out and buy the whole new truck just to get it in brushless form, because it's actually the exact same vehicle underneath. They didn't make any mechanical changes to the vehicle going from the brushed version to the brushless version other than just swapping out the electronics. The brushless version also comes with aluminum shock bodies, which is just for bling. It is not going to change the performance of the vehicle at all. So rather than buying the whole new one, I just put in one of these. It is a low-end $70 brushless motor combo, fairly weak as brushless systems go. 35 amps speed control, 3000 kV motor, and it's not a full 540 size motor. It's one of those finned motors. I actually did a full review on this system if you want to see that review by itself. But I plugged that in here without making any other changes to hopefully get it very close to the power that you would get from the ready-to-run brushless system. Hopefully it will hold up. Now, I did have concerns right from the start about just the idea of putting a brushless motor into a $100 four-wheel drive 10-scale monster truck. However, the driveline is actually not so bad on this. It's got metal pinion, metal spur, metal center drive shaft, metal diff. All the gears in the diff, in and on and going into the diff, are metal. Everything is metal. Metal dog bones, metal stub axles, everything is metal except for just the little adapters at the ends of the center drive shaft. Those are plastic. At any rate, driveline hopefully will be able to stand up to this because it comes pretty much ready to go for that kind of power. So let's see how it did. Oh yeah, babe, that really kicks it up a notch. Whatever happened to Emerald Lagasse anyway? Well, as you can see, I hope that you can notice that this is faster than the brushed version. Of course, if you haven't seen my review of the brushed version of the truck, please be sure to check that out. It goes into the details of the chassis and the overall handling characteristics of the vehicle a little bit better. But with brushless power, it's a little bit more of a handful to keep it under control. This thing does have a very slow steering servo, so there's a little bit, actually quite a bit of delay between when you want it to turn and when it decides to actually execute that turn. The traction of the stock tires is poor. Oops. Traction of the tires is poor. I touched on that in the brushed edition review. It's even more apparent with more power, and actually the more power you put down, the more traction you need, and this really doesn't have as much as you want. All in all, it's still able to get around a track okay and all, but it's a lot more of a handful to keep it under control, to make it go where you want, when you want. Speed is pretty decent though. But how about we take a break for some bloopers? All right, back to the serious stuff. This is serious toy cars. I started just driving it around pretty normally, just doing some jumps and stuff, and started to have some problems. Was ist das? Das ist drive shaft. Und das ist broken hub carrier. This happened several times. Yeah, I pretty quickly got tired of breaking rear hub carriers. Here you can see my little collection of them that I ended up getting, and these are just some of the ones that broke off. So I got tired of going through all that, so I went ahead and bit the bullet and bought and installed the aluminum upgrade hub carriers, which are expensive. They're $30 for a pair for just to replace these two pieces. Problems with that installation: it's not quite a direct drop in. The plastic ones come with the set screw that's used to capture the pin. They use no E-clips, and they're not screw pins, they're just straight pins with a set screw that goes in from the bottom. Plastic ones come with that. The aluminum ones don't. It's not the same size. So if you get the aluminum ones, you're going to need to get 3mm set screws to put in there, and of course use some Loctite on that. Also, the hardware doesn't work out so well, because you really want to use longer screws to fasten on your camber links. Camber links normally have a screw that's pretty much the correct length to go through the top of these plastic pieces, and they'll just thread right into there. With plastic, it'll kind of hold itself, but with aluminum, it's not really going to hold itself unless you use thread lock, and even then, it's not the greatest idea to just leave it by itself. You want to get a longer 3mm screw and get a lock nut to put on the other side of it to really lock it in. So it wasn't just a direct replacement, but at least now I had aluminum rear hub carriers, no more breakages, right? Wrong! Nope, still had some problems. Went right back to driving it the way that I was doing before, and it didn't take long before I started having this issue. Front wheel drive caused by that. Yeah. So, more breakages. Metal parts, they don't have anything bigger for these, but honestly, when I started looking into the breakages that occurred here, and also there's more damage than just breakage. There's little bits of these that are chewed up, and also they're bent, even at the end that did not break. So I started looking into it a little bit more. Take a look at this thing up more closely, and I'll show you some of the problems that are really working against this poor truck. Check this out. Push down on the suspension and it stops going before the chassis hits the ground. There's nothing under the chassis that's hitting the ground there, and it's not the shocks. The shocks are not bottoming out either. So what's actually going on? It's the dog bones. The dog bones are actually bottoming out in their cups. They're reaching the end point because they just were not designed to go through that much range of motion, the range of motion that you get on the monster truck version of this chassis. It's also available as a buggy and as a touring car, actually. But here with these tall tires, before the chassis bottoms out, these are running out of space. And so when you land a jump, the suspension compresses all the way. Now these are just pushing up against the cups of the stub axle and the diff output inside of there. There's all sorts of just bad forces that conspire together in there to just cause that dog bone to want to fail. Previously, when I had the plastic hub carriers on there, the hub carriers were actually able to take some of the force, and that's one of the reasons, one of several reasons, that the hub carriers, the plastic ones, will break on this thing in brushless form. Once you get enough power to really get some air and put some force on the drive line. Bottom line, in brushed form, I had a lot of fun with this truck. In brushless form, I didn't have much fun with this truck at all. I ran 2 battery packs through it before I called it quits, because I had this pile of broken parts, and I was not really trying to destroy the vehicle. I was just trying to drive it the way that folks normally would drive an entry-level vehicle. It's really targeted towards non-experts, and non-experts will crash sometimes, and that's fine, and you should be able to crash sometimes without your steel axles bending and breaking and popping out. You can't get, as I said, bigger, thicker, stronger versions of these from the manufacturer. This is it. They do have a CVA version, but it's still going to have the same problem. The length is the same, and it's still going to end up binding a little bit smoother in there, but it's not, no more strength. So there really isn't a solution to the problem. Perhaps someone out there who really wants to make this thing work will find some other manufacturer who makes a compatible dog bone, or maybe there's a modification you can do to the diff cups to accept some MIP CVDs or something like that. Throwing more money at it, I don't like that idea. As a ready-to-run brushless vehicle, I do not recommend the Exceed RC Dynamite Brushless Edition. I do not recommend that you take the brushed version and put even the weakest, slowest, softest, most mild brushless system in there. More power puts more strain on the drivetrain, which unfortunately, even though everything is metal, still is having a problem due to the binding. You get more air, you get more speed, which means you come down with more force. With the brushless version, you just get into all sorts of additional problems that you just couldn't experience with it in brushed form, because it's just not fast enough in brushed form. 20 miles an hour or so topping out. Don't recommend this at all. That's of course one person's opinion, but it is based on actual experiences. I showed you the breakages that I had with it. I believe that the buggy version will not have these problems because it doesn't have these larger wheels and tires. The buggy version will be able to actually bottom out and slap the chassis, which is a good thing for landing big jumps. You don't want to transfer all of your forces into just parts. Just slapping the chassis is a good way to dissipate force, and then you don't have to worry about bottoming these things out. Also, with the touring car version, you have very little range of motion. I don't believe you're going to have that problem with it either. With the Dynamite, the monster truck, don't recommend it. Don't put brushless in your brushed version. Sorry, no good. That's what happens when you get a review of a vehicle and the review is not paid for by a manufacturer. You sometimes find out about bad stuff. So that's that for this review. I hope that this was good information for you. If you want to see more unbiased reviews based on my actual experiences with vehicles, be sure to subscribe to the Ultimate RC Network channel on YouTube. And if you want to talk about any vehicle whatsoever, or parts, or just, shoot the crap about RC in general, be sure to stop by the friendly forums at ultimaterc.com. Hope to see you there, and hope to see you again in my next video. Bye for now.